So last week, I'm at brunch with my buddy Marcus. He just turned 32, makes about $140,000 a year, and he's complaining about how he can't seem to save money. And I'm sitting there watching him order a $28 avocado toast and a $16 cold brew, and then he mentions he's about to drop $800 on courtside tickets to a game next month. And I'm thinking, this is exactly why most people never build wealth. Here's the thing. Marcus isn't unique. He's making what 90% of Americans would consider great money, but he's falling into the exact same trap that keeps the middle class, well, middle class. And what's wild is that the actual millionaires I know, the ones who built their wealth before 35, they stopped buying these exact same things years ago. Not because they couldn't afford them, but because they understood something Marcus hasn't figured out yet.
My name is Jake, and I spend way too much time thinking about why smart people make terrible financial decisions. If you're someone who makes decent money but still feels broke at the end of every month, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Look, I want to be clear about something right from the start. This isn't one of those videos where I tell you to stop buying coffee and magically you'll become a millionaire. That's garbage advice, and we both know it. What I'm talking about today is fundamentally different. These are the 8 things that create what I call wealth sinkholes. Expenses that don't just cost you money today, but actively prevent you from building wealth for decades.
According to a 2024 study from Fidelity Investments, the average self-made millionaire hit their first million by age 37. But here's what's interesting. When researchers analyzed their spending patterns, they found that between ages 28 and 35, these people systematically eliminated certain categories of spending that their peers kept buying. And it wasn't about being cheap. It was about something way more strategic. All right, let's start with the most obvious one that somehow everyone still gets wrong. New luxury cars. Now, you might be thinking, oh, great, another person telling me not to buy a nice car. But hear me out, because the math on this is actually insane. The average new luxury car, let's say a BMW 3 Series or an Audi A4, costs about $48,000. If you finance that at today's rates, you're looking at around $850 a month for 5 years. That's $10,200 a year. But here's what most people don't realize. That's not the actual cost.
First, luxury cars depreciate at about 20% the moment you drive them off the lot, so you just lost $9,600 in 60 seconds. Then they depreciate another 15 to 20% each year for the first 3 years. Your $48,000 car is worth maybe $24,000 after 3 years. You've lost $24,000 in value while paying $36,600 in payments. You're down $54,600, and we haven't even talked about insurance yet. Luxury car insurance runs about $2,400 a year more than a reliable used car. Premium gas is another $600 more annually. Maintenance on luxury vehicles? About $1,200 more per year. So add another $4,200 annually, or $12,600 over 3 years. Total 3-year cost? $67,200. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Let's say instead you bought a 3-year-old Honda Accord or Toyota Camry for $18,000. Reliable, comfortable, gets you everywhere you need to go. You pay it off in 2 years at $800 a month. Your insurance is reasonable, your maintenance is minimal.
But the real kicker? That $50,000 difference. If you invested that in an S&P 500 index fund at age 30, with historical average returns of about 10% annually, by age 65, that's worth $1.76 million. $1.76 million for one car purchase decision at age 30. This is where people usually say, but Jake, you only live once. I want to enjoy my money now. And look, I get it. But here's the psychological trap. Buying a luxury car doesn't actually make you happier. There's a phenomenon called hedonic adaptation. Basically, you get used to nice things really fast. Research from the Journal of Consumer Psychology found that the happiness boost from a new car purchase lasts on average about 3 months. Then it's just your car. You're stuck with the payments, but the joy is gone. Millionaires figure this out early. They drive Toyota 4Runners and Honda Pilots that they buy used and drive for 10 years. Not because they're cheap, but because they're playing a different game.
Here's something that blows my mind. I know people in their early 30s paying $3,200 a month for a one-bedroom apartment in trendy neighborhoods because that's just what rent costs in the city. No, that's what rent costs when you optimize for Instagram aesthetics over wealth building. Look, housing is usually your biggest expense, and every dollar you overspend here is a dollar you can't invest. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say you're paying $3,200 for a trendy one-bedroom in a hip neighborhood. You could get a perfectly nice one-bedroom in a slightly less trendy area, maybe a 15-minute longer commute, for $2,200. That's a $1,000 monthly difference, or $12,000 a year. Now, here's the thing. Most people think it's only $1,000 a month, and I deserve to live somewhere nice. But that $12,000 a year invested from age 30 to 65 at 10% returns becomes $3.16 million. $3 million.
And this is what drives me crazy, because it's not even about living in a bad place. A $2,200 apartment can be completely comfortable. You just might not have exposed brick walls and a view of the city skyline. But you know what you will have? Financial freedom in your 40s instead of being trapped in the rent cycle forever. Here's what most people don't realize. Wealthy people don't think about housing the same way. According to Thomas Stanley's research in The Millionaire Next Door, most millionaires spend no more than 20% of their take-home pay on housing. The average American? About 35–40%. That difference, 15–20% of your income, compounded over decades, is the difference between building wealth and staying broke. And there's a psychological component here too. When you live in an expensive apartment in a trendy neighborhood, you're surrounded by people spending money. Your social circle becomes consumption-focused. You feel pressure to keep up. It's like trying to diet while working at a bakery. Your environment is sabotaging your goals.
All right, this one seems small, but it's actually a perfect example of what I call death by 1,000 cuts. The average American now has about 4 or 5 streaming services, plus a gym membership they use twice a year, plus that meditation app they forgot they're paying for, plus a meal kit subscription they don't actually cook, plus premium versions of apps they could use for free. Let's do the math. Netflix Premium, $23 a month. Hulu, $18 a month. Disney Plus, $14 a month. HBO Max, $20 a month. That gym membership you never use, $60 a month. Spotify Premium, $11 a month. That meal kit you order once every 2 months, $50 a month. Random app subscriptions you forgot about, $20 a month. That's $216 per month, or $2,592 a year.
Now look, I'm not saying don't have any subscriptions. What I'm saying is most people are paying for things on autopilot without actually using them. A 2023 survey by C+R Research found that Americans waste an average of $219 per month on unused subscriptions. That's not even counting subscriptions they do use but don't actually get value from. Here's what millionaires do differently. They audit their subscriptions quarterly. They ask, am I actually using this? Does this add significant value to my life? Or am I paying because I forgot to cancel? And here's the thing, that $2,592 a year invested from age 30 to 65 becomes $682,000. But there's something even more important happening here. When you're not tracking your small recurring expenses, you develop what behavioral economists call loss aversion numbness. You stop feeling the pain of spending because it's automatic. And that mindset, that lack of intentionality, bleeds into other areas of your financial life. The people who build wealth before 35, they're intentional about every dollar. Not obsessive, not cheap, intentional. They know where their money goes. They choose consciously.
Okay, this is where people get defensive, so stay with me. I'm talking about spending $800 on a designer handbag instead of $100 on a quality bag that does the exact same thing. I'm talking about spending $150 on a designer t-shirt instead of $20 on a plain tee that lasts just as long. I'm talking about buying brand name products specifically for the logo, not the quality. Here's a study that'll make you rethink everything. Researchers at Yale found that when people buy luxury branded goods, they're not buying better quality. They're buying social signaling. The actual quality difference between a $200 Coach wallet and a $40 Target wallet? Minimal. But the perceived status difference, that's what you're paying for.
And here's what kills me. The people with actual wealth, they're not walking around covered in logos. Research shows that truly wealthy individuals are less likely to buy conspicuous luxury goods than people who are trying to look wealthy. Let me paint you a picture. I know a guy, let's call him David, who's worth about $8 million. Built a software company, sold it at 34. You know what he wears? Uniqlo t-shirts and Levi's jeans. Drives a 2018 Honda CR-V, lives in a nice but not ostentatious house. Then I know another guy, let's call him Brad, who makes $95,000 a year, wears Gucci belts, carries a Louis Vuitton messenger bag, drives a leased BMW, has $3,200 in his savings account. One of these people is wealthy, the other is performing wealth, and the performance is what keeps him poor. If you're spending $3,000 a year on brand name clothes and accessories for the logo, not for actual quality, that's $789,000 at age 65. But more importantly, you're training your brain to derive self-worth from what you own rather than what you've built. And that mindset will sabotage every other financial decision you make. Look, I love good food. I love going out. I'm not saying never have fun. But here's where most people in their 20s and early 30s absolutely hemorrhage money. They're spending $200 to $400 every weekend on dinners, drinks, and nightlife. Let's break this down. Dinner at a nice restaurant for two, $150. Drinks afterward, $80. Uber both ways, $50. That's $280 per weekend. Do that twice a month, which is actually conservative for a lot of young professionals, and you're at $560 a month, or $6,720 a year. Now here's what most people don't realize. You're not just spending the money, you're spending the future value of that money. That $6,720 a year, invested from age 30 to 65, is worth $1.77 million.
But wait, there's more. I sound like an infomercial, but this is important. When you're going out to expensive places regularly, you're normalizing a lifestyle that's incompatible with building wealth. You start to think, this is just what social life costs. But it's not. That's what social life costs when you're optimizing for luxury instead of connection. Here's what changed the game for me. I started hosting dinners at home. Seriously, buy good ingredients, cook something nice, invite friends over. Cost per person? Maybe $15, $20. Quality of conversation and connection? Way better than a loud restaurant where you can't hear each other anyway.
The millionaires I know, they're selective. They go out for special occasions and make them count. But their regular social life doesn't revolve around expensive consumption. It revolves around experiences and relationships that don't require dropping $300 every Friday night. And there's a deeper issue here. When your social life is expensive, you need to keep earning a lot of money just to maintain it. You become trapped on what I call the lifestyle treadmill. You can't take a pay cut for a better opportunity. You can't take a risk on starting a business. You're stuck because your life requires a certain income. That's not freedom. That's a very expensive prison.
Okay, this one makes me genuinely frustrated because it's so predatory. Here's the scenario. You move into a new place, you need furniture, and you see that sign, no payments for 12 months, or just $79 a month for this couch. And it seems reasonable because you don't have $1,500 saved up to buy the couch outright. But here's the thing. If you can't afford to buy something outright, you definitely can't afford to finance it at 24% APR, which is what most furniture store financing actually is after the promotional period ends. According to the Federal Reserve, the average American has about $1,600 in furniture and appliance debt at any given time. That might not sound like much, but they're paying an average of 22% interest on it. So that $1,600 balance, you're paying $352 a year just in interest. Money literally disappearing into thin air.
Here's what millionaires do. They buy furniture and electronics with cash, and they buy quality stuff used. Facebook Marketplace, estate sales, Craigslist. You can furnish an entire apartment for $2,000 with stuff that would cost $15,000 new. But there's something more important happening here. When you finance furniture, you're training yourself to think about monthly payments instead of total cost. And that mindset is absolute poison for building wealth. Because once you start thinking in monthly payments, you can justify anything. It's only $50 a month. Yeah, but that's $600 a year plus interest for a TV you could have saved up and bought in 3 months for cash. This is where it gets really interesting. Researchers at MIT found that people spend up to 100% more when they use credit compared to cash for the exact same items. Why? Because the pain of payment is delayed. You don't feel it immediately, so your brain doesn't properly weigh the cost. The people who build wealth before 35, they feel every dollar they spend. Not in a painful way, but in a conscious, intentional way. All right, this one is sneaky because it feels responsible. You're buying insurance. You're being smart. Except you're not. Here's what I mean. Extended warranties on electronics, phone insurance, rental car insurance when your credit card already covers it, buying insurance on a package you're shipping, Apple Care on devices that rarely break. The insurance industry has done an incredible job convincing people that they need insurance on everything. But here's the truth. Insurance is for catastrophic risks, not minor inconveniences.
Let me show you the math. Apple Care for an iPhone costs about $200 for 2 years. The deductible, if you actually use it, $99. So you're paying $200 for the privilege of paying $99 if your phone breaks. But what's the actual likelihood your phone breaks? For most people, it's less than 20%. So you're paying $200 to potentially save $200 to $300 on a 20% chance event. That's terrible math. Here's what the wealthy do. They self-insure small risks. They keep an emergency fund for things like phone repairs or minor car damage. They only buy insurance for things that would actually devastate them financially. Health, home, car liability, life insurance if people depend on their income. Everything else, they do the math and realize they're better off keeping the premium payments and investing them.
And here's the thing. If you're buying extended warranties and insurance on everything, you're probably doing it because you don't have an emergency fund. And that's the real problem. You're treating insurance companies like an emergency fund, but you're paying a massive premium for it. A Bankrate survey found that Americans spend an average of $40 to $160 per month on various small insurance products that they never use and don't actually need. That's $720 a year. Over 35 years invested at 10%, that's $189,000. But more importantly, fixing this forces you to build an actual emergency fund, which is foundational to wealth building. Okay, this last one is subtle, but maybe the most important. I'm talking about jobs that require you to spend significant money to maintain them. Jobs where you need to dress a certain way, live in a certain area, drive a certain car, or participate in expensive networking events to advance.
Here's an investment banking example. Yeah, you're making $120,000 as a first-year analyst, but you're also working 80-hour weeks, which means you're ordering delivery every meal, $400 a week, you're taking Ubers everywhere because you don't have time for public transit, $300 a week, you need dry cleaning for all those suits, $80 a week, and you're expected to participate in expensive team dinners and client entertainment. All of a sudden, you're spending $40,000 to $50,000 a year just to do your job. Your effective salary is like $70,000, but you're working twice as many hours as someone making $70,000 in a normal job. Or here's another example. Jobs that require you to live in Manhattan or San Francisco, where rent is $4,000 plus for a studio.
Yeah, the salary is higher, but the forced expenses eat all of it and more. Now, you might be thinking, but Jake, those high-paying jobs are how you get ahead. And look, sometimes they are. But here's what most people don't realize. Millionaires optimize for savings rate, not salary. If you make $120,000 and spend $100,000, you're saving $20,000 a year. If you make $85,000 and spend $50,000, you're saving $35,000 a year. The second person is building wealth almost twice as fast, even though they make way less money. According to research from the Economic Policy Institute, people in high-cost-of-living cities save a lower percentage of their income than people in mid-cost cities, even when their salaries are adjusted for cost of living, because the lifestyle inflation is baked into the culture. The millionaires I know who built wealth before 35, a lot of them specifically chose career paths that had high income potential but moderate lifestyle requirements. They became engineers, not investment bankers. They worked for tech companies in Austin, not in San Francisco. They optimized for savings rate over absolute salary. And here's the kicker. When you're not trapped by expensive lifestyle requirements, you have freedom. You can take risks. You can start a business. You can negotiate harder because you're not desperate. That freedom is what actually creates wealth.
Okay, so let's add this all up, because I think seeing the total is important. If you eliminate or significantly reduce these 8 categories starting at age 30, luxury car, $50,000 to $1.76 million by 65. Expensive housing, $12,000 a year to $3.16 million by 65. Unused subscriptions, $2,592 per year to $682,000 by 65. Brand name everything, $3,000 a year to $789,000 by 65. Expensive nightlife, $6,720 per year to $1.77 million by 65. Financing furniture, $352 per year just the interest to $93,000 by 65. Unnecessary insurance, $720 per year to $189,000 by 65. And career lifestyle inflation varies, but let's say it allows you to save an extra $10,000 per year to $2.63 million by 65. Total difference by age 65, over $11 million. $11 million. These aren't radical changes. You're not living like a monk. You're just being intentional about spending on things that actually matter to you instead of defaulting to what everyone else is doing. Here's what most people don't realize. Becoming a millionaire isn't about one big decision. It's about a series of small decisions compounded over time. It's about understanding the difference between building wealth and performing wealth. Look, I get it. This stuff isn't sexy. It's way more fun to think about what you'll do with your money than to think about what you won't buy with it. But here's the truth. The people who build wealth before 35 aren't smarter than you. They're not luckier than you. They're not making way more money than you. They just stopped buying these 8 things while everyone else kept buying them. And that difference, compounded over time, is everything. So here's my challenge to you. Pick 3 things from this list. Just 3. Calculate how much you're spending on them per year. Plug that number into a compound interest calculator at 10% returns over 35 years. Look at that number. Really look at it. Then ask yourself, is the thing I'm buying today worth the financial freedom I'm giving up tomorrow? Because that's really what this is about. It's not about deprivation. It's about intentionality. It's about consciously choosing the life you want instead of defaulting to the life that advertising and social pressure have chosen for you. If this video changed how you think about money, make sure you're subscribed because we talk about this stuff every single week. Drop a comment and let me know which of these 8 things resonates most with you, or if you've already cut something from this list and how it's changed your financial situation. Remember, wealth isn't about how much you make, it's about how much you keep and how smart you are with what you keep. I'll see you in the next one.